Okay. So we're doing podcast number 2. We had some questions actually from a viewer in regards to the first podcast. So I wrote some of the questions down and I hope to answer those questions. The first thing was, it was in regards to OBS Studio because this person actually streams themselves. So they wanted to know what effects I had and kind of what my setup was. So initially, I will first of all show you the effects, then I'll show you the microphone. So the way to get the effects in OBS, I mean, I'm not going to do a big OBS tutorial, but I'm bringing the mic in. I should probably bring the gain down. There we go, just a little bit. So you click on this gear button to bring up the options. You go to filters, and then from here you click on the plus. Right, this is my effects chain. Click on the plus sign, and then you've got all sorts of different effects. Your compressor, expander, your gain, invert the polarity, limiter, noise gate, noise suppression, and then any VST to plug in, which is pretty cool. So for my specific one, I've got a compressor coming in hot, I suppose. My reverb, I've thrown on a towel reverb. It's not really pulling all my VSTs, I've noticed. It's just pulling certain VSTs, I guess VST2s, and maybe not the VST3s. So I clicked on this drop-down menu. It shows you all the VSTs that you can pick from. To actually open that interface for the reverb, it's right here. To monitor the actual outputs of that, so you can hear what's going on. Let me just close this. Is you go back here, advanced audio properties, and you change your audio monitoring to monitor only. And then you mute the output, and so you can just hear all your effects as you're playing with them. So I'm not going to do it now because I'm sort of satisfied with what I've got set up for now. I've ordered an actual hardware expander, limiter, gate. So hopefully that's going to help out with this. So I'm going to close this up and go back to the filters. So again, compressor, reverb, just to give it a little bit of room noise. The limiter, because I don't want to clip, so I've limited to -6 dB. Threw a noise gate on there that I was sort of happy with. I'm not really happy with this noise gate. Could just be me in the wrong set. It's probably just me setting the wrong settings up, but hopefully the hardware gate's going to be a little bit better. So that's basically the settings that I have for that particular question there. So this person also wanted to know what microphone I was using. I'm using the AKG Perception 400. This is a picture of it. You get this nice case. Comes with the cradle mount and the mic that has 3 polar patterns. And I've got some other photos here. There it is sitting in the cradle. It's really nice. I've got it sitting in front of me, about 6 to 8 inches away from my mouth. No pop filter on. I don't really need it. I'm talking kind of quietly. Right now I'm recording it at 11 o'clock at night, and I've got family sleeping, so I don't want to talk too loud. So I've got the gain up. I can't really tell exactly what it's at. But I've got it at a comfortable setting. The microphone has 3 polar patterns, cardioid, figure 8, and omnidirectional. And these are the charts for them. So it shows you when you're sitting right in front. This is the axis. So off-axis coloration. So this 0 line is if you're sitting right in front of the microphone capsule, which is also diagrammed here. And then this is as you start to walk around the capsule. This is at 90 degrees. And then this is at 180 degrees, which is usually full rejection on a cardioid polar pattern. The deviation you see here is when you turn the roll off. It's got a low frequency roll off, so it's just showing you once that's turned on, this is the frequency response that you get. So it's cutting all that Now that's actually what I have on now, but you're still getting a lot of bass because I've added the compressor and the expander. It's actually bringing up that those frequencies back into the mix. And if I actually turn that on, which I can do now, things are a little bit deeper. I had to clear my throat there. Things are a little bit deeper. Let me just click it back as I'm talking. The bass goes away. Hopefully that translates into the effects chain. I'm not monitoring it right now. And then, so this also shows you when you're completely standing behind the microphone. So if I was on the opposite side, 180 degrees, this is the type of frequency response you get, which is obviously way below flat. So what you're looking for, if you want true reproduction of audio, you're looking for a flat frequency response. And this does fairly well between 100 and 1700 hertz. And then above that, it starts to boost the high frequencies, which is okay because that's a typical coloration of a condenser microphone. Higher frequencies are colored and boosted, and it sounds good when I'm talking, so I don't really have to EQ the high end, which is good. So that's kind of why I like using it for this setup. Figure 8, this is what the figure 8 looks like. Again, it's showing you actually at 90 degrees because if you're at 180 degrees, it's because of the figure 8, the nature of the figure 8 pattern. You basically have two singers facing each other into one microphone, and you're going to pick up the same frequency response at the back, I assume, because they're showing the rejection at 90. That would be the most rejection that you're going to get on this specific polar pattern. Not sure why it's not showing the roll-off, though. Maybe the roll-off doesn't come into effect for omnidirectional and figure 8. We can try it, but this isn't a microphone tutorial. But that's what I'm using. So those are the charts. You can go on Google and find them if you're really interested in this microphone. You can look it up, all that stuff up. And so that's pretty much it. So what's one of the other questions? So we got the OBS settings, the microphone explained. This is kind of where it is. I don't really want to tinker with the settings, but this is kind of, again, sitting about 6 to 8 inches away from my mouth, kind of in line exactly with where my speech is coming out, because I've got the mic tilted up towards my mouth and I'm looking kind of at a downward angle. So my voice is going directly into that mic. So it's perfect for this type of setting. There was a question about the output chain in Reason, which is basically, in layman's terms, I wasn't really monitoring the output. So I noticed on the first video, I had my mixer settings over on the right side, and I was talking about the control button, and I was saying that if you have your fader down and you hold control and you click on it, oh, it's not, why isn't it doing that? Oh, there we go. It goes back to 0. I wonder why I'm getting a hiccup when I'm holding control. Anyway, it goes back to 0. That wasn't clear in the last video. So there it is now. So the question is, explain my output chain. The output chain in Reason, the stereo out has got a compressor, a compressor built right onto it. It's got FX chains that you can send to all the different channels. It's got inserts and control room, master, and delay compensation. You can turn that on and off. It's defaulted to on. And of course, you've got your EQ for the whole master section. Now, to answer the question is, I don't really do anything in Reason. Typically, I have Cubase as the master DAW, and then Reason working in Rewire, and then I would use Cubase's master to stereo output as where I put all my effects on. So for this, I would probably just keep it as is, and again use Reason in Rewire mode. In the olden days, now you can actually bring Reason in as a VST to Cubase, so that's going to solve a lot of problems that way. I actually haven't tried it. I'm waiting for Cubase to come in, but I will most likely do a video on Cubase and Reason running hand in hand, which is very interesting and double, triple the power. I don't know how that math works out, but anyways. So yeah, again, I don't really mess with it. You can. There's some really powerful stuff on the master effects, master stereo out, but I don't really mess with it. And also, the first podcast I only really got through showing you the sample, putting that on the timeline, and then getting, the kick drum, the hi-hat, and the snare before everything kind of cut out on my cameras. So I didn't really get far enough. Typically, I would get all my elements of the song, all the musical elements in place first, and then I would go in and I would mix everything from there. And typically, the rule of thumb would be to try and see. I'm not really doing much on the screen right now, but typically the rule of thumb would be to try and mix your loudest source, the loudest source, to -8, and then mix everything around the loudest source, and then from there you want to basically bring everything to -3 dB, and you'll give your mastering engineer -3 dB headroom to play with. So that's basically it. Is I don't really mess too much with the output chain to answer that question. Okay, so in today's session, we are going to be doing a little bit of output arcade again. This time for the drums, we're going to be doing Redrum or Redrum, and we're going to be talking about rack patching and how it may be daunting. Okay, so let's go and open up our arcade. So again, we'll go to we've got our rack mount open. We'll go to our browser. We're going to go down to third party. And that is all the way down at the bottom. Drag it over into your rack mount. Click on the open button and all this pops up. All right, let's head to Nashville. And I've got a fair amount of these already downloaded. I like that fast. There might be something there at the end, in the middle. Let's try. I've got the BP. Oh, I want to do a fast song, but look. Oh. Lower it down. That's cool. This is easy to play with. Let's just do it. Let's not mess around. Let's not mess around tonight. All right. So there was also another question. Is yesterday I was messing around with adding this to the piano roll, which is over here, and the question was why? Because I was dealing with input latency, and the question was why? Why am I hitting record, pressing the button, only to go back into the piano roll, which is a great question, because I don't need to do that, right? Here's how it initially was. You take your pencil, you can draw out, if you want a 4-bar loop. See, I've got my loop already set to 4 bars. You double click on so you go back to your pointer. After you click the pencil to draw out the 4-bar, you go back to the selection tool. You double click on your selection, this box, brings up the piano roll, and then, where was it? That one. You go back to your pencil, and you draw it in. If you got snap, it'll just snap to the first bar anyway, and you just draw it out. That's essentially what the viewer was asking about, and there you have it. Fun. So we can do that. We can, let's do that. Let's go back to the piano roll. And we'll add the, that other one that kind of talks with it. The old, that guy. Draw him in. Same way. A mid loop here. At the end of the 2 bar. Although, how many people feel that this should be reversed? It just, that feels like when it goes up, and then that goes down, feels like you want to go up and then go down, and then transition back and up and then down in your notes. I have no idea what I'm talking about, but it sounded cool. Oh, all right, so fairly simple. So today, so this is basically where we were yesterday, and I kind of jumped really through that fairly quick because we want to mostly show the Redrum, and then the daunting task of patching stuff. Just not so daunting. Not so daunting. All right, so first things first, we're gonna bring our mixer out. We're gonna bring a mixer. So we're gonna go to Utilities, our 14x2 mixer. And it's called 14x2 because I believe you have 14 ins and 2 outs. You have 4 returns. That means you can put like a compressor, a reverb. You gotta put 4 effects on here, and then you can access them from the from these. For some reason I thought there was 3. There's the 4th one. Hey, so yeah, so these you attach effects to these. You basically route to them, and we can do that today. I can show you that. Yeah, and then you use these pan pots. So let's do it. So we've got our mixer out. We're gonna bring in our. I'm just, for the sake of me not saying Redrum, I'm just gonna call it the Redrum. I'm gonna right click. We're gonna reset the device. So now everything's back to normal. All levels, I guess, are not set to 0. What are they set to? 100. All right. We have no samples loaded. What we want to do is hit the tab button. Right now it defaults to the left and right out of the Redrum is headed into channel 1. We don't want that. Disconnect this. And we want to bring all 10 outs of the Redrum drum machine, and we want to put it in here. And we want to do that because the Redrum only initially, when you initially bring the Redrum out into the rack, it sends a stereo left, right, out to the master. And you don't want that because it gives you limited control over individual level. I mean, there's levels, there's effects, there's pans, there's levels, and there's pitch, and there's things within. There's a strips within Redrum, but this gives you more options, and you always want more options. Always. More options the merrier. Okay, let's bring this back. So we've got oh, my battery's dying. Okay, I will be back in a second. Now at this point, let's do all of our auxiliary sends. Let's just do it before we bring in any samples because it's just easier that way. Let's go to our effects. Again, let's see, because these are all new ones, and I could bring. So I have isotope. These are all sort of restoration isotope products. Denoisers, declickers, hiss remover, hum removal. A lot of the stuff used in video post production to clean up the mix of like a lavalier that's sitting in in a big room and maybe you need to clean up the room noise. So that stuff is really good for that stuff. Isotope vinyl, add vinyl sounds to your mix. There's the imager that I should have used in the first podcast. I think it might be interesting to just use the onboard effects. The old tried and true onboard effects. So let's bring in the reverb. So the channel dynamics, what's this? A compressor? Compressor, an expander, and a gate. Nice. Something you definitely want for drums. More so live drums, not so much when you're doing electronic drums. The reason I say that is because when you're doing live drums, you're going to get a lot of leaking from microphones. So you're going to get, for instance, you'll hear the snare in like the tom mic or the kick drum. So you're going to use a gate to gate all that stuff out. Your samples on samples that most likely come on a computer or a pack is going to not have any leakage from any other source most of the time, unless it's taken from unless it's sampled from live drums. Okay, so I don't need the compressor. Let's bring the EQ. We get a better EQ than just treble and bass, just a 2-band EQ. We now have a 4-band EQ. And what else do we need? Compressor, gate, expander, reverb, EQ. Oh my. Digital delay line, stereo imager. They don't have another delay? All this time and there's only one delay? Okay, let me bring this delay out. We've added the reverb, compressor, gate expander, EQ, and a delay line for whatever reason. Now, because we've added all that stuff, Reason is freaked out. So we're going to hit tab to go around the back, and we're going to start doing our connections, and then we're not going to be afraid, because this is what we'd have to do in an actual studio. So let's not be afraid. Let's just get this done. We'll worry about being afraid later. Okay. Okay. I'm happy. So what we want to do, think of your signal flow. We want to have these 4 effects go to these 4 returns, and in turn, they're going to be triggered by these pan pots. In order to do that, flip her around, hit the old tab button. You find the output. Okay, so we got the sends and the return. So we got to send it. Okay. We got to send it. Okay, so this is an education in signal flow. Signal flow starts. We want to send it out. The auxiliary send 1. Go in, audio input, on your plate reverb, and it automatically puts both cables down. Now, you've gone into the reverb, but there's no sound coming back because you've got to connect the loop. So you take your audio outs of the reverb and you bring it into your returns. Okay? You do the same thing for the other ones. Simple as that. Not so daunting, very easy, because now you have so much power at your disposal. You can take these wires and put them anywhere. Anywhere. And it doesn't even need to make sense. You can go nowhere. Like my career. So that's the input. And the output is going to the return. Okay, so now do you want an example of what I've just done? Sure I do. We'll do the snare. So again, what I'm doing here is for those of you who missed the first podcast, the riveting 40-minute podcast, I've gone over to one of my folders where I've held all my samples. I'm clicking on my drum kits. I'm going to individual samples, This is just the way that the person who's made the sample pack has arranged everything. I'm going to find my snares. Where was that first one? Now there was also a question about my about the sound when I'm previewing these samples not being as loud as when they're being triggered in the actual player, and that was correct because I believe yesterday's player I didn't have the level of the sample being played set to 100. Let me just stop this for a second. So it would basically, here's the level of my preview. I can bring it all the way down or bring it all the way back up. So basically what was happening yesterday was this was set all the way up, and then probably the level of the individual sample once I brought it in was lower than the 100%, and therefore there was a discrepancy. I'm guessing that's what was going on. All right, let's play this sample again. I feel like there should be a clap here. It feels like it's like a sunny day and people are gathered around. So let's get some claps. Snare clap layers. Let's not layer it. Let's get it just a straight clap. Wow. You know why I like this? Because this is like the picnic. So I'm gonna drag this into the first channel. No, I usually put the kick there. I'm gonna put in the second one. Oh, there you are. Let's bring her up. Now you can see that my routing, I have full control over this snare in channel 2 because I've routed channel 2 to the channel 2 on the mixer. And there she is. From here, I can use, let's stop this for a second, the pan. I can solo it, mute it, mess with the bass, turn the bass all the way. So you've got to actually turn this channel 2-channel EQ on for it to work. And let's just this on 5 and 13. So I've reduced all the high frequencies. Bring it back. Right. There's your clap, right? Oh, maybe I want to add some reverb. So this is what I did. I made it so that all you have to do, instead of having like a reverb for every single channel, so instead of having like 8 different reverbs for 10, I guess there's 10 here, having 10 reverbs for 10 different channels, then you just have one, and you can tweak the percentage that this one is coming through to whatever channel you want. So let's play this clap again, and let's do this reverb. And where is it? Where's that reverb? Oh. So there it is. Right? From there you can go down, and now it's 100% wet. We don't want 100% wet on the reverb. We also don't want the decay time to sound like it's in a hallway. And, you know, you're getting that typical plate sound where it doesn't sound natural. You know, it's very fast. In some cases, fast transients. And it sounds almost metallic in some cases because it's a plate. It's not a spring reverb, though. Anyway, so you get the picture. You can go through your settings, find the reverb that you like. You know, that's kind of cool. They're accentuating the highs a lot, though. Let's bring that down. I mean, we're outside, right? What kind of reverb is going to be outside on a nice day? So let's bring back the main sample. All right, so maybe they're, you know, taking a few moments to look at each other, and then they're clapping and they're bobbing their heads a bit. Okay, and they're having fun, and we're gonna look for a kick. So this is fairly simple. I haven't done much yet. Here you'll find a kick. This one. This one's just got a nice little thump to it. Maybe the channel EQ wasn't the greatest of ideas, because I'm not gonna stop this for a second. Channel EQ may not be the best of ideas to put down here, because you're not gonna want to EQ globally everything the same. You're gonna want to have individual EQ. So it might be a wiser choice to either, what do we have here? Sidechain. No, that's for that. That's for the dynamics. For the EQ, then, I mean, you could go out. You could go out. Let's disconnect the snare. And then go back to the effects. And we are going to get the channel EQ. And we're going to just stick it up here. Disconnect. 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 This master out, we got to make sure that the master out of this is going to the mixed channel input. Okay, I know this is daunting. There's a lot of cable now. At this point, there is a lot of cables going on, but if you just remember what you've done, you should be okay. So what we're doing is we're putting an EQ right here to go out. Number 2. So we're going out of the snare, and we're going in the EQ, and then out into the mixer. Now we have access for the and I can show you. I can turn the high pass filter. Right? Now what I really wanted to do was for the kick, because that's what we were working on. So let's leave that, and we can call this snare. Whoop. Snare EQ. Right? This is gonna go all the way through here. Snare EQ. Now let's make a new one. Disconnect. Disconnect, dog.